a fascinating group of people who are going to speak to us today about, from the title Voices in Exile, and the issues of supporting a new community or emerging community of activists here in Canada who are engaged or seek to be engaged in their country of origin in this ever more porous and complex interdependent world in which we live. They are part of, and I'm very pleased to say that they have been a part of for some time, an initiative that we have at the University of Ottawa, co-led by my colleagues, Professor Nadia Abuzara and Dr. Philip Leach, on which we call Voices in Exile, where we've tried to come to understand better the phenomenon of the people you will hear from, and not just the kind of old paradigm that people may flee to a country like Canada, seek refuge or protection, and which is part of our history, part of our the Canadian story, that people have come here for all sorts of reasons, either because they have been forcibly pushed to flee or because they've made choices that they thought it would be better for their lives, for their families. But increasingly, with the world in which it is, the places of choice are diminishing. The free world is under pressure. The free spaces in order to work are under constant constraint and diminishment. And so it's very important that that we understand the complexity of this new world disorder and the special role that many of these people play in a transversal, transnational interchange between the societies and the communities and the institutions and countries of origin and their countries of refuge or exile, or where they can live and work now, and some of the challenges involved. What we will hear today from our speakers is a bit about their own story, their own background, so we get to understand them better. Who are these people, our neighbors, and our new, many have become citizens or permanent residents or are on that pathway, issues of their personal journey and challenges. Then we will hear something from each of them about their work, their professional engagements, the kind of topics in which they're engaged. So what that is, which is interesting and unique, or not the common thing that our neighbors down the street are usually engaged in. And so it's something for us to understand better. And third of all, we're going to hear from each of them a bit about the challenges they face and what their kind of needs, but also what their maybe aspirations or hopes would be for support or for ways in which they could be assisted and helped in doing better the work that they're doing, which is important for us as a country on a whole. So we have 4 speakers today from quite different situations and countries of origin. I'm not going to introduce them in detail. They will, because they will tell their story themselves. You can see on the notification for this session a brief reference to their backgrounds. I'll just mention briefly. Dr. Olha Chernovol is a lawyer, a jurist from Ukraine, and she specializes in anti-corruption work. And she's currently a postdoctoral fellow here at the University of Ottawa. She will speak first. Then Luis Horacio Najera will speak second. He's originally from Mexico. He's a journalist. Unfortunately, because of the quality and professional work he was doing in Mexico, which was specifically investigative reporting, he'll talk a bit about this, focused on corruption. He really had to leave Mexico, his country, his neighbors and life, in order to have safety and security. And he came to Canada some years ago and has remained very much outspoken, but engaged in the field of journalism. The third person will speak is Shabnam Salehi. She's originally from Afghanistan, also came here more recently. She's a women's rights advocate, advocate for gender equality. She's worked also with public institutions in Afghanistan, and is now here also at the University of Ottawa, very much engaged now in some scholarly work, but ongoing activism concerned about legal reform, and she'll tell us more about that work. And then finally, we have Victor Amisi Sulubika. He's an advocate and is very well known, particularly in Montreal, Quebec. He's originally from the Democratic Republic of Congo. He's focused a lot on the phenomenon of child soldiers and armament, disarmament, and he continues that work, very much engaged, which of course is a matter more so in the global south and in his continent of origin, and he'll speak with us. Je crois que Victor, vous vous présentez en français, j'imagine.
Oui, pas de problème. Oui.
OK, c'est votre choix. Nous n'avons pas l'interprétation, mais vous êtes bienvenu, bien sûr, de vous présenter soit en anglais, soit en français. D'accord?
Merci. Merci.
Okay, so Victor will present in French, or maybe some words in English to summarize or make points, and I will provide some brief summary afterwards. So without further ado, let's start then by hearing about from and about Dr. Olga Chernovol. Dr. Chernovol, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, John. Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be here today and have a discussion about the experience, views, and needs of activists arriving to Canada. Thank you very much for such great opportunity. So I will start by telling you about myself and my experience of arriving to Canada. My name is Olha Chernovol. I am a lawyer and scholar from Ukraine. In March 2022, I was forced to leave Kiev due to the Russian invasion. On February 21st, 2022, my life took a drastic turn. As a successful lawyer with a PhD in law and expertise in anti-corruption, I found myself in a precarious situation in Kiev. The city became a war zone with the Russian soldiers nearby. Therefore, given my professional background and expertise in the civil sector and anti-corruption, I knew it was necessary to leave for my own safety. On March 7th, 2022, I crossed Ukrainian border close to Poland. I stayed with friends in Warsaw for 2 days while trying to purchase a train ticket to Germany, my ended final destination. Upon arrival in Germany on March 10th, 2022, I stayed with a few friends who kindly hosted me for a short period of time. I spent 3 months in Germany as a refugee with a minimal possessions and a little of official documentation. During my stay in Germany, I learned about special emergency visa program for Ukrainians seeking to come to Canada for a safer place, called Canada-Ukraine Authorization for Emergency Travel. I applied for and received an emergency visa under this program. Meanwhile, I began to look for job opportunities outside of Ukraine, as I knew it would not be safe to return to my previous job while war will be continued. I arrived in Ottawa on June 11th, 2022. And after settling in, I started my postdoctoral fellowship with Professor Jennifer Quaid. As a member of her research team, I have been focusing on anti-corruption enforcement. Specifically, my research explores the risk within the legal and institutional components of anti-corruption policies, as well as the effectiveness of using non-trial resolution mechanisms in anti-corruption. As a new postdoctoral fellow, I was fortunate to be given an office space inside the Human Rights Research and Education Center, where I was able to meet and interact with the graduate students and the scholar hosted at the center, as well as the executive team of the center, John Pecker and Viviana Fernandez. With their support and encouragement, I joined a Scholar at Risk program and Voice and Exile project, no longer after my arrival. Also, with their support from Ottawa's Human Rights Research and Education Center, I have earned funding from the Scholar at Risk Network through a special fellowship support program that helps North American member institutions host threatened and displaced scholars from Ukraine. Now I will mention a bit about my area of expertise and area of work. My primary research interests are concerned with the history of law and how it continues to be made. In particular, my work focuses on analysis of legal duties of citizens, theoretical models of legal provisions and implementation, and the most recent anti-corruption policies. My most recent publication, entitled Anti-Corruption Policies in the Baltic Black Sea region, offers examples into my expertise in ongoing relevant field of organizational criminal liability and anti-corruption. Over the past several years, I have worked preliminarily on matters related to integrity, due diligence, anti-corruption, anti-money laundering, and financing terrorism. In my role as a project coordinator and co-Salehi and as an executive director of NGO Transparent Democracy. Since 2020, I have been a member of the Ukrainian National Bar Association and have 7 years of experience in legal practice in different areas of law in Ukraine, including civil, corporate, administrative, criminal, tax, banking, military, and labor law. As I mentioned earlier, last year I focused on enforcing anti-corruption policies. My research explored the risks associated with the legal and institutional components of anti-corruption policies. Additionally, I studied the effectiveness of non-trial resolution mechanisms in corruption cases. My current project explores anti-corruption mechanisms in Ukraine. The country's current anti-corruption regime, originally put in place in 2014, has faced increased risks since the start of Russian invasion. Many observers wonder about the capacity of Ukrainian enforcements to sustain their oversight activities in the face of new increased risks of corruption and money laundering that may result of martial law being imposed. I'm trying to examine these recent developments as well as the corruption risk that arose prior to the war, during and at the same time during the implementation of current anti-corruption mechanisms. I hope that the documenting of the Ukrainian experience could provide helpful insights for Canadian policymakers as they evaluate how the best to improve Canada's current anti-corruption system. My work is important, but considering the ongoing war and the debates about the future reconstruction of Ukraine, it can be risky. These risks can arise not just from Russian side, but also from other sides, including Ukrainian. In a case, if I provide a professional opinion related to anti-corruption efforts in Ukraine that different slightly from the official one. After being displaced and finding a safe place in Canada, I was able to continue my work. And I would like to say thank you for that to the University of Ottawa and Faculty of Law and the Human Rights Research and Education Center for providing me this significant support to my work in Canada. But of course, during my work in Canada, I faced challenges. While working in Canada, I encourage various of challenges, and I'm sure other voices in exile have the same situation. We could discuss these challenges at length, but I would like to highlight just a few ones. First one, the safe place must continue to remain safe. In order to ensure the safety of activists in the host country, it's crucial to have guarantees that they will remain safe even if they continue their work. Typically, programs provide a safe place and support with the basic needs, but there are no additional measures in place to protect activists from threats and transitional repression in the host countries. This leaves many activists unsure of what steps to take in the event of such repression, even countries like Canada. The next challenge is like long-term programs to ensure the work of activists should be created. After arriving as a safe place, activists usually struggle with the trauma of relocation and adaptation to the new environment. One of their biggest challenges will be finding a job. And even if they do find employment, it will likely be a short-term program, which could make it difficult to continue working in Canada. And the last one is platforms where activists can share experience and build networking should be also created. Creating the platform for activists in Canada to share experience and their expertise and build networks is important for continue their jobs. Because like, as I mentioned before, when activists arrive to Canada, they struggle with the trauma. At the same time, they're struggling to find the job opportunities, right? So the platforms where activists in exile or activists, human rights defender can find a safer place where they can share their opinions, right? And share expertise must be created because it will help to ensure the safety and they probably will feel safe in Canada. So these all points what I wanted to mention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Olga, for your presentation. And what I suggest is that we will discuss some of these points at the end after we've heard from all four of our speakers. Some, no doubt, will be shared or repeated observations and experiences. Some may be distinct. But I propose that we don't now discuss your specific experience or points. We'll listen to the next speakers.
Okay.
So now it's my pleasure to invite Luis Horacio Najera, who will present about himself, about his professional work, and about the challenges that he has encountered and his thoughts and aspirations. Luis, please.
Thank you, John. Thank you. And thank you all for being here with us. Merci beaucoup. That's a few words in French that I can speak. Pleasure to be here. My name is Luis Horacio Najera. It's the Spanish way to say it. I'm originally from northern Mexico. And before moving to or fleeing to Canada, I worked as a journalist. I was, before my need to escape my country of origin, I worked as a senior correspondent at the US-Mexico border, particularly in a place called Ciudad Juárez. Some of you may have heard about Juárez because between 2008 and 2011, it became the world's most violent city because of the conflict between organized crime groups and the response from the government. We, with my family, we fled to Canada in 2008 after I received death threats, and the situation became unsustainable for me over there. I came to Canada, to Vancouver. I lived there for 3 years, and then through the generosity of Massey College and the University of Toronto, I moved to Toronto. I relocate here, where I live since then. And the challenges, well, the challenges have been diverse. Olga spoke eloquently about very common challenges, as John mentioned too. So basically, I would like to focus on my activism. Well, it's interesting for me because I will say that after I kind of settled, quote unquote, in Canada, I became a kind of a double activist, a local activist, but also an international activist. My international activism is, of course, related to press freedom, safety for journalists, also to freedom of expression, mostly related to journalists across particularly the Western Hemisphere, because of my background and my his Latin American heritage or origin. And the local activist in me has slowly developed after I've seen the common challenges that we as activists in exile face in Canada. And I'm trying to use my experience and my knowledge in journalism to develop that activism. For instance, this is a piece that I wrote for Maclean's, the magazine Maclean's, in early this, it was last year. And this is, for instance, things that I like to write about, like my experience as an educated person who has been able to find a job because of many circumstances, prejudice, ignorance, and sometimes even systemic or personal racism. I have, once I moved to Canada, I went to school twice. I have a master's in global affairs for University of Toronto, and then that didn't work out. And then I decided to go for a second master's degree. And then I went to York University, and I graduated from a master's in disaster and emergency management. Why I went to do a second master's, you might ask? It was because, unfortunately, the first one didn't work out at all for me. And I tried and I looked for different options to do a PhD. And unfortunately, the applications that I submit to universities across Canada didn't succeed on those applications. Again, my kind of double activism plus my experience in journalism. I guess I can easily show that in October 2021, I was fortunate and I finally co-authored this book, which is The Wolfpack, and it's about organized crime in Mexico and Canada, the new generations, the new generation of drug dealers in Canada and Mexico. And this is kind of my this is co-authored with Peter Edwards, but in the last year, just a couple of months ago, I co-authored also this book. It's called The Uncaged Voices, and it's stories of writers in exile. And this is a book where 15 writers in exile from most of us here in Toronto, and we published small essays writing about our experiences, either in our home countries or now are the challenges that we face here in Canada, which led me to my my third point. Part of that kind of intertwined activism, local and international. I think we have three challenges basically. It's integration, projection, and preparation for the future. And we can discuss that later. And the way that I can summarize that is, I think Canada as a country, there's a need to evolve, to transition from being refugee friendly to becoming refugee embracing, which means experience overseas is recognized, integrated, and promoted within Canada's social and economical fabric. I think that's a big challenge, and that's one of the reasons because I'm engaged with this marvelous group of activists in exile. And I leave it there, and I think we can continue the conversation later.
Thank you, Luis. Can I ask you two things? You said three things. You said that we need to keep in mind integration. I'm not sure I got the second one, and then you said projection for the future. What were the three?
No. It's integration, is projection that leads to preparation for the future.
Preparation for the first.
Yes, preparation. Yeah, so the first one is integration, and then the second step will be projection that leads to preparation for the future.
Okay, we'll come back to that. I put in the chat the link for your first book. Your second book, what was it? What is the title of your second book again? Show us again. The Uncaged Voice. Okay, yeah.
The Uncaged Voice.
I'll look for the link and I'll put that up also.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now we'll go on to our third speaker. So I think everyone can see we already have a remarkable diversity, some clear similarities, but Luis's background, story, and profession rather different than Olga's. Now we're going to hear from yet a very different, again, story and background and professional engagement, and again with some similarities. So it's my pleasure to now invite Shabnam Salehi to address us.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's my pleasure to speaking to you. So my name is Shabnam Salehi. I was born and raised in Afghanistan. Before coming to Canada, I used to work as a scholar and Women Rights Commissioner at Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commission. By profession, I'm a lawyer. I graduated from Kabul University Law Faculty. I started teaching there as an assistant professor in 2012. After that, beside my scholar activism, I start writing and research in the law, specifically in the family law and women's rights and human rights, especially in domestic violence. My specialization is in domestic violence. Besides domestic violence, I also active in other human rights areas like transition justice and also the victim-centered justice. In 2019, I selected as a Women Rights Commissioner for Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commission. Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commission was a commission that was established based on the bond agreement and also Afghanistan Constitution, and it was its main mandate was monitoring and promotion and protection of human rights in Afghanistan. As a commissioner, my main mandate was to promote, protect, investigate, and also monitor the women's rights situation. Beside my public job, I also had some temporary public jobs, like I was a member of the team who monitored peace talk in Doha in 2020, and beside that, I was a member of different commission. So my activisms, especially in the human rights and women's rights, somehow lead me to flee my country. That was not only one reason. I had other reason also. In 2021, August 15, Taliban they took the power in Afghanistan, and they dissolved the government, or somehow government collapsed, and that was the time that I need to flee my country. I stay in Afghanistan up to the 25th of August. After that, I leave Afghanistan and I came to Albania. I spent 2 months there. And in October 2021, I came to Canada as a refugee. And from October to March or May of 2022, I was in some kind of trauma and shock because I don't have any part to which I can go. And in May 2022, I have received offer from the Youth Award to join Youth Award as a scholar at risk, and that was some kind of a relief for me, because when you leave your country, you leave your experience, your career, and you are trying to start from scratch, and you have no path in the new country, so that's very difficult. And somehow the burden I brought from my country, like losing your country, and at the same time you should stand for yourself, for the people you left behind in your country, and at the same time you should find a job to feed yourself or your family. That was difficult, but luckily I was amongst the few lucky people that I got offered from the University of Ottawa, and that suit perfectly my experience, because I was a scholar and I was a activist. So coming to Youth Awards a new life for me, and I start my new journey here. And here in Youth Award, I'm somehow engaged in research, teaching, and also activism. And luckily, I'm a part of few network of activism, like Voices in Exile and other women, peace and security networking, other networks. So that how that opportunity, like Voices in Exile, and also being active in research and activism in University of Ottawa, give me a new platform that somehow make me to continue my activism. You know that when you saw the situation in Afghanistan, the women face a restriction. They don't have a right to education, right to work, right to public participation. So the only voice for them is someone who is outside Afghanistan. If I don't have this opportunity, I will not be able to be their voice. So that opportunity gave me another opportunity to be active both in the national and international level. And my affiliation with the University of Ottawa gave me a credential to be voice in the international level. For example, now I'm a part of a large group who are advocating for the codification and recognition and criminalizing of the gender apartheid under the Rome Statutes. So that's somehow this affiliation, both scholarly and activism, somehow able me to at an international level to have a voice, to conduct research, to be part of different panels and conferences, to advocate for our aim. Besides that, I am active right now to an evacuation process, the women rights activists and the human rights activists who are still back in country and face the persecution. I work as someone who refer or someone who verify the information about them, and I'm active in that area. Besides that, still, even though the Taliban dissolved the Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commission in 2022, still we operate in exile on the volunteer basis. We document human rights violation that's happening right now in Afghanistan. Besides that, when we documented this violation, we send it to different international organizations who somehow engaging in the documentation and verification in the somehow in the further process, like ICC. And beside my academic journey and my activism, I'm also trying to be active voice for Afghan women in the media, both in digital media and social media. So I'm trying to have interviews on different media channels, and I'm trying to be active in the different social media platform like Twitter or Facebook, other media platforms, to be voice for them, because nowadays only tool that Afghan women have is the social media or someone who is outside Afghanistan and can be voice for them. During my activism in exile, I'll speak commonly and a few problems that specifically I face, and I will speak later more on that about. I think for me, as a person who was activist, who was vocal on the women rights issue and human rights issue, right now the main problem that I face, that I lost my legitimacy as someone who stood for human rights. Most of the people try to blame me that you're not a real activists. If you are a real activist, you should stand by your sister inside the country, and you should do activism inside the country. And you know that in situation like Afghanistan, that's a difficult choice to make. You should you have only two choices. You face a prosecution, or you should leave a country. Well, you should be somehow shut your mouth, because the Taliban are not allowing someone. Right now, we have almost, I think, 5 human rights activists inside the prisons. So the main problem for me was the losing legitimacy, my self-legitimacy. And somehow most of people, and sometimes myself, see me that I'm not a real activist, because if I was an activist, I should change the things for the people. I should change I should have the ability to change the things for the people. The second problem, I think, don't have a direct connection to the field. That's the other problem. You know, for someone who is working in documentation of human rights, direct access to field is very difficult, very important. So nowadays, if the Taliban find my contact number with some victim, that's the case for them, because they see that if they are in connection with the human rights organization, and they are trying to document, and that will result in the trial for the Taliban, and they know that. So most of the my colleagues that are working inside of Afghanistan, they are afraid to somehow connect me. They are afraid to send me the data. And that's, in most cases, we have people that they told me, we are afraid, we can't save your number on our phones. So I think that's the other problem for myself. Besides that, as a person, I think the digital security and the mental security is the other problem I think it's commonly for every human rights activist. We know that now we are living in a global village, and everyone have access to the social media and the internet, and it's very easy for someone to send a message and tweet, and it's very easy for someone who hack you, your account, and somehow it's very easy for him to destroy your mental safety. So I think that's a common problem as an activist that I face. I will explain more about later. Over to you, John.
Thank you, Shabnam. Very interesting. There is a lot, of course, in the problem of transnational repression, but I think it's also interesting how you pointed out that you become now a kind of risk factor for your comrades or people you worked with before, because even them having your contact information is a problem now. So this is this global village we live in has a great complexity. We will come back to this topic, which is very real and getting more problematical in a moment. Now, for our fourth speaker, it's my pleasure to invite Victor Amissi-Sulubika to speak. Victor will speak in French. We'll make some summary of some points in English. Donc, Victor, vous vous présentez en français. Et si vous avez un moment pour ajouter quelques mots en anglais pour les autres, je vous remercie en avant. Mais je vais aussi faire un petit sommaire à la fin. Donc, Victor, vous pouvez commencer.
Bien, merci beaucoup et aussi bonjour, chers collègues. C'est vraiment un plaisir de vous rencontrer, d'autres pour la première fois. Bien sûr, d'autres, c'est pas pour la première fois. C'est vraiment un grand panel qui réunit tous les activistes, c'est-à-dire en exil, et qui travaillent pour la bonne cause. Je suis très ravi vraiment de faire connaissance. En fait, je suis Victor Amissi, et je viens de la République démocratique du Congo. C'est un pays de l'Afrique centrale, comme vous le connaissez, c'est un pays toujours en guerre. Et cette situation m'a poussé, moi, en tant qu'activiste, de me lancer dans cette lutte, la lutte contre les violations des droits de la personne. Et comme j'ai fait toujours comme passion la lutte contre l'injustice, pour la dignité humaine et le respect des droits de la personne. Et mon expertise de travail, c'est beaucoup plus dans les programmes de démobilisation, le désarmement et la réintégration des enfants soldats, parce que avec toutes les années de guerre en République démocratique du Congo, il y avait toujours l'utilisation des enfants soldats. Alors, parmi notre cible, c'est les femmes et les enfants. Travaillons pour la réintégration, l'appui, on apporte de l'appui holistique à toutes les femmes qui sont victimes de viols et violences sexuelles pendant les guerres, et aussi aux jeunes enfants, même aux jeunes adolescents qui sont utilisés comme militaires, comme soldats par les groupes armés. C'est un travail très difficile, mais malheureusement, qui m'a forcé de quitter mon pays parce qu'il y avait la menace sur ma vie. Il fallait d'abord sauver ma peau pour aller continuer ailleurs. Et si je me suis retrouvé en Ouganda, à Kampala, où j'ai été reçu par la section de Amnesty International, qui était notre partenaire depuis longtemps. Alors, ce qui était très bon pour Amnesty International, il m'a offert un espace pour travailler et puis rejoindre toute l'équipe de recherche au niveau de l'Afrique centrale. Un appui qui a été très bénéfique et pour moi et pour les autres activistes des droits de l'homme qui ont quitté la ville de Goma pendant cette période-là. Après tout un processus de réinstallation, je me suis retrouvé au Canada grâce à Amnesty International qui m'a facilité cette réinstallation. Arrivé ici au Canada, j'ai été accueilli par la section Amnesty International, la section anglophone, là où c'était la même chose, ils m'ont donné de l'espace pour travailler et j'ai joint l'équipe des volontaires. Donc, je participais comme bénévole dans toutes les activités de Amnesty International. Et ce qui m'a aidé d'abord à avoir une idée de ce que je vais faire. Et après, il y a toujours cet équilibre entre la recherche de la vie et puis la continuité de la passion. Human right to work, I have to make like a balance between my, my passion and also have to work for revenue. That was a big challenge I had. Alors, je devrais travailler pour, bien sûr, la survie ici pour vivre ici au Canada. Et ensuite, il fallait continuer avec ma passion. C'était un travail très difficile. Il faut donner beaucoup de temps, 60% ici, 40% ici ou 50-50. Mais une chose est certaine est que la passion m'a toujours animé de ne plus abandonner. Parce que je me suis dit, ce qui ne m'a pas tué m'a rendu fort. Les menaces que j'avais reçues au Congo, comme je n'étais pas mort, cela m'a donné encore des munitions pour continuer avec mon travail. Heureusement que je suis arrivé dans un pays où il y a le droit et me donne de l'espace pour travailler. Et c'est ce que j'ai fait. Pendant que j'étais en train de travailler avec Amnesty International, j'étais à la recherche aussi du travail. Actuellement, je suis professeur de français langue seconde pour les fonctionnaires du gouvernement fédéral. Bien sûr, c'est un travail, ça me procure des revenus et aussi avec d'autres petits contrats au niveau d'un certain ministère. Cependant, le travail de droits de l'homme ne m'abandonne pas. Je dois continuer avec ça parce que c'est ça, en fait, ma passion. En m'établissant ici, je me suis dit, je dois continuer avec le travail de mon organisation. Je me suis maintenant lancé à faire des recherches pour le réseautage avec des grandes organisations. Aujourd'hui, nous avons un statut consultatif au sein de l'ECOSOC, aux Nations Unies, ce qui nous permet de participer à plusieurs rencontres internationales, des conférences, notamment sur le désarmement, le programme des Nations Unies sur le désarmement, les armes légères, et aussi sur la justice internationale. Et je fais partie aussi de la coalition pour la Cour pénale internationale parce que j'avais beaucoup contribué aux enquêtes, à tout ce qui est comme travail, ce qui avait même abouti à l'arrestation de ces 4 seigneurs de guerre en République démocratique du Congo, qui ont été arrêtés, condamnés, jugés et condamnés par la Cour pénale internationale, et aussi d'autres qui sont encore en prison en ce moment. On continue avec ce travail. Et avec ma participation dans le grand réseau sur les armes légères, le réseau international sur les armes légères qui est EIANSA, et aussi dans le réseau contrôle armes. Ce qui me donne aussi la possibilité, lorsque je participe à toutes les rencontres, de parler au nom des organisations de la société civile. Je prends la parole pour parler des défis, disons, des défis qui s'y trouvent dans le transfert et le commerce des armes. On a beaucoup travaillé sur les négociations pour les traités sur le commerce des armes. Et aussi, j'ai beaucoup travaillé dans l'équipe groupe de travail sur les traités sur les commerces des armes nucléaires. Alors, dans toutes ces situations, je me retrouve dans l'équipe des chercheurs, dans l'équipe des personnes qui font des grands plaidoyers et des lobbying au niveau international. Ça, c'est vraiment un travail très intéressant et je me sens que je suis vraiment dans ma peau en train d'apporter quelque chose au niveau international. Et au niveau du Canada, j'ai continué avec le travail parce que je suis toujours panéliste, conférencier chez les jeunes. Chaque année, je suis invité pour animer les ateliers au Congrès des jeunes de Amnesty International. À chaque année qu'ils organisent, je suis toujours invité. Et aussi dans les écoles ou dans les universités où on m'appelle pour parler. Donc, je joue le rôle de l'influenceur auprès des jeunes parce que, notamment, c'est sur la responsabilité, le leadership, la situation à travers le monde, qui sont les effets sur les armes, les effets des armes et de la violence sur les jeunes. Et comment est-ce que les jeunes peuvent participer à la construction des mondes beaucoup plus meilleurs. C'est un travail que je fais régulièrement et ça me donne envie chaque fois de contribuer, même au niveau ici, au niveau du Canada. Cela m'a valu certains prix de reconnaissance au niveau de la communauté, association de francophones de l'Ontario. J'ai eu beaucoup de prix quand même pour les jeunes au niveau de l'Université d'Ottawa par rapport à mon travail. Et ça me pousse à continuer beaucoup plus parce que c'est un travail qui ne s'arrête pas. Pour le moment, je suis ambassadeur de programme de convention, disons, de prévention crime Ottawa, parce que je contribue aussi pour la prévention de tout ce qu'il y a comme violence due aux armes, pour essayer de voir comment est-ce que le Canada peut faire avancer la loi sur le contrôle des armes. Cela va aider aussi à prévenir la violence au sein de notre communauté. Le grand défi que nous avons actuellement, si je peux le dire, c'est par rapport à la continuité de notre travail, à la qualité du travail que nous faisons. Nous avons des organisations qui ont besoin de l'appui pour essayer d'aider nos collaborateurs ou nos partenaires avec qui on travaille sur le terrain. On a aussi les grands problèmes de participation à plusieurs rencontres. Plusieurs rencontres se font à l'extérieur, mais comme s'il n'y a pas de moyens, vous ne pouvez pas participer. C'est-à-dire votre contribution reste seulement ici. Et si ça ne se fait pas en ligne, alors c'est tout. Vous vous sentez comme si vous êtes vulnérable et vous ne faites rien, apparemment. Autre grand défi, c'est par rapport à la reconnaissance de ce que nous faisons. Heureusement que nous avons ce programme au niveau de l'Université d'Ottawa qui permet à ce que nous puissions être reconnus. D'abord, ça, c'est vraiment une très grande reconnaissance que je peux adresser à l'équipe et puis au centre de recherche, parce que ça nous permet maintenant de nous faire valoriser. Ça nous valorise et on se retrouve vraiment dans notre bain. Parce que quand je regarde, je fais la comparaison avec nos amis avec qui on a travaillé, ils ont abandonné ce travail. Ils sont tous pour la recherche de revenus, mais peu continuent. Alors, ce que l'université fait, le centre de recherche, c'est ce qui nous motive de continuer et d'aller jusqu'en avant. D'ailleurs, j'aimerais bien peut-être, ne fût-ce qu'écrire un livre. Notre collègue, lui, qui a eu le courage d'écrire, moi, j'aimerais aussi faire la même chose parce que notre expérience de ce que nous faisons peut influencer et motiver les autres à joindre notre travail. Nous avons, ça c'est ce que like a legacy can live for our, disons pour les jeunes qui peuvent nous suivre dire voici ce que vous pouvez faire après nous. Ça, c'est un grand travail et qui nous permettra peut-être de renforcer ce que nous faisons. Voilà, en bref, ce que je pouvais dire par rapport à ça. Et peut-être s'il y aura d'autres questions, ou je le ferai, je répondrai à la fin. So, thank you very much, everyone.
Merci beaucoup, Victor. Je vais juste prendre quelques minutes pour essayer de faire une brève sommaire en anglais.
Merci.
Vous pouvez me corriger si je me trompe. So Victor, who's from the Dominican Republic of Congo, he was, in terms of his personal story, we need to remember that DRC has been in a kind of perpetual armed conflict or conflicts for so many decades now, generations even, and with widespread severe human rights violations. The typical, so not the kind of a 19th or early 20th century war, but very nasty, low-level violent conflict, sometimes high-level, lots of human rights violations. And so Victor was involved when there was efforts of demilitarization, and particularly child soldiers who would come back, or soldiers who would come back from the fighting, and there would be processes of integration. And this was also typified the violations, but also those processes of sexual violence against women in particular. So there were complicated social elements. So he was involved in this and was subject to threats against himself, and was therefore felt he had to leave. And his story, like others, is not a direct line. He didn't get on a plane and come to Canada. He went, first of all, to, if I understand, through Uganda. And so, a circuitous journey, and through contacts through Amnesty International and others, he was able to eventually get to Canada. I'm sure there's a longer story, but that's the brief story. And here in Canada, with Amnesty International, that allowed him, of course, to have some contacts with a community of people who were following these things. But he did so as a volunteer, and that allowed him to, continue the pursuit of his passion for his work. But he, of course, was preoccupied with trying to survive, to make ends meet, as we say, to just get the earn a living to survive, essentially. And this kind of constant challenge, how much he could spend time finding a way to survive versus being able to continue the pursuit of his passion. But nonetheless, eventually, he was able to establish a group, an NGO, and which allowed him to participate in a more structured way, and not only in Canada, but also internationally. And this has been very important. The focus of a lot of his work has been on arms control, because of the preponderance of weapons that really drive a lot of the violence and the conflict and the human rights violations that typify not only DRC but other places. So arms control, then arms trade, and even eventually in terms of nuclear arms issues. And in that regard, Victor has become involved not only in issues in Canada, and for example, our own adhesion to these international instruments and our own domestication of them, Canadian standards, but also he's been involved in international lobbying on this. He's enjoyed in particular his engagement and his support for youth advocates and their participation. It's part, I gather, Victor, of your passion, and the importance of trying to inspire the next generation. If I understood you correctly, you said you'd love to write a book as others. The challenges that some of Victor mentioned that he observes is not only to continue the work, but to continue it with a quality of work. That with the pressures and the big challenges in life, it's difficult for activists in exile to have the resources to ensure the quality of work. And that's partly a problem now because there are all sorts of issues of connections on the ground, having that direct relationship. Of course, it's difficult from a distance, but also because there's a lack of recognition for the work. It's not valued as it should be. I think this is a theme we've heard from others. And the result of that is people who are trying to survive, and then they meet with this lack of recognition, lack of values. Many abandon the work. And that's another part of, I think, the phenomenon. So I hope that was a fair summary of in English. Okay, so thank you for the 4 participants now who have contributed, and I would like to bring out a few other issues. Some have been recurrent here. Issues. Shabnam also talked about this challenge of legitimacy, which is not only in the eyes of others, but even in your own eyes of yourself. When you leave and you feel you must leave for protecting your life, for your family, or a life in dignity, what does that mean for yourself in terms of identity, in terms of your community, people whom you have worked with? And there's not only the kind of eyes of the others, but I think there's your eyes in your own mind of your own self. And I know that some people have dealt with this, have faced this also in mental health terms. This is not an easy phenomenon to experience. I don't know if anyone wants to speak to this a bit more, but I'm sure any dislocation or movement, migration for anyone, even in nice terms. I have lived abroad in other countries, but I did it by choice, and I did it with the support of others and being welcomed. So I can only imagine that this is, and even then I had worries about how I integrated, and I didn't necessarily speak the language and know the systems locally. Does anyone want to comment a bit about this kind of, I mean, this is really a question, a personal experience question. Does anyone want to speak a bit more? Olga, please.
Yeah, I can add some comments. I agree with you. I can tell based on my experience when I came to Canada, probably from the beginning, I didn't understand that I'm struggling with a trauma, because I didn't expect that I have to flee to Ukraine, right? One moment I understand that it's dangerous, so I have to. It's not by my choice, right? And I relocated to Canada, right? I needed to adapt. I was lucky that I already had a job opportunity, but I can imagine for other people, for Voices in Exile activists, when they arriving to Canada, right? Because I see that mainly these programs for activists, they just based, we have to provide you entrance to the country, basic needs, and then just all right. And they're struggling with finding a job at the same time. So can you imagine, we have trauma, right? Then we have challenges with the language, with network here in Canada. Then we have challenges with settling in. Yeah, I have heard that some programs have basic needs like housing, right? For my case, host family where I was living, they helped me to find an apartment, but according to my program Quiet for Ukrainians, I needed to find it by my own. Other side, just these trauma effects, in what way? You don't know what you have to do. You just a bit lost. You arrived, right? So you ensured your basic needs. If we're talking about professional experience, you don't know a common rule of network here, right? So, and you're struggling. Oh, who I need to connect, right? What I have to write, even a simple email, right? In our countries, we have different rules about writing an email, right? And then, okay, how it works, we don't know how it works. So we just struggling with the trauma, we struggling with understanding how it should work, right? And how we need to adapt to this system. And at the same time, we struggle with short-term opportunities for us. And this altogether makes the adaptation in a host country more difficult. So not everyone is ready to face these challenges, you know? And like, yeah, I agreed with other panelists that it's pretty challenges, you know, face this trauma after relocation. And yeah, not everyone, from the beginning, we don't understand that the main factor which influence our professional development in Canada, for example, right, is a trauma, because just we don't know how we can develop ourselves like activists, like professionals here. And of course, professional recognition is important in this case, just because in my case, like I'm licensed attorney in Ukraine, I can't practice in Canada. They told me that I have to study or receive license in other common system country, and it takes for a while, right? So what I have to do in this case, so I can't find other specific programs for voices in exile, right? Like me, who have license in law, right? What I have to do, how I can practice in Canada. So these challenges, yeah, I face in Canada.
Thanks, Olga. I see, Luis, you want to share some thoughts. Can just before I ask you, and Shabnam too, can I also ask you, without you disclosing anything specific, I think most of you still have close family back in your country of origin. Is that correct? Olga, I see nodding. Shabnam, you know, so there's also that emotional question that's very real. That it's not just about yourself, is what I'm saying. Even if someone's accompanying, but you, in the sense of you and your immediate family, is detached, divorced, and under threat. But Luis, please comment.
Yeah, thank you. It's very interesting the comment that you said, because today is my mom's birthday, and here I am. So I'm unable to being there with her and treasure this stage of her life and my dad's life, which is of course is close to an end. Logical reasons, right? But still, and also my mother-in-law. So that's a very painful aspect of being in exile. Just quickly about Olga mentioned. I think when we as activists in exile, or when we as activists came to Canada, I think we bring. I think our most valuable possessions, which are our minds, our professional experiences, but also our human dignity. And that is when mental health and settlement and support plays a significant role, because we don't lost our minds, we don't lost our professional experiences, but our human dignity is really affected when you come to Canada, because you have to, you're arriving in a new country with, as Olga mentioned, with a lot of trauma. But then you have to reclaim, and that's something that I've been thinking a lot about recently. How can I reclaim my human dignity? And the issue here is it's really hard to reclaim that human dignity when you don't have, then when you can barely support your family, or as in my case, that I have been trying, and I am being pretty much struggling with unemployment since for years, just jumping from here to there. So that's a key element, I guess, how to reclaim your human dignity.
I think that's a very powerful way to express it. And I see, Victor, your the screenshot or not screenshot, the background you have, which is about dignity, this crucial idea, which binds us all, I think, as human beings, but also should connect us in some policy terms, right? But very interesting, Luis, you mentioning that suddenly the challenge of your dignity is not in leaving, it is actually upon arrival. There's some issues there. Shabnam, you please.
Yeah,
please.
Just quickly,
Sure.
just to comment that, and that's another point that I've been also thinking about a lot. We have to, I guess, evolve Canada as from a policy of compassion towards a policy for empowerment, and that's also where human dignity plays a significant role. From compassion to empowerment.
I think that's an extremely important point. Let's come back to that. We're seeing that a lot right now in the global discussion around humanitarianism. Is it a matter of charity or is it something else? Is it human rights? Is it, and I think a lot of people still think about this as charity, compassion, which are nice values, but not enough, right? So I think that's a brilliant point. We'll come back to Shabnam.
I just want to briefly add on something on Olga's one. So I think my experience is a little bit different because I think my problem is, my trauma is different. Maybe everyone thinks the same way, but in my case, I lost my country. I lost my art values. I lost our system. We lost our all institutions, all laws that we have worked for almost 2 decades for it. And that when you are seeing something in front of your eyes that's erasing, that you have put a lot of effort to bring it to some point. We advocate for only one amendment in the criminal code for almost 5 years, but in the 1 second they erase everything. So losing everything, and you consider yourself that you are no one. You are coming to a new place with a new identity. Nothing else, nothing left for you. You left your career, you left your country, and you lost everything. Even your memory, and that was not by chance, and that was someone who made you to flee your country. And at the same time, coming to the new environment and starting from scratch. And even in the new environment, everyone claiming that you don't have a Canadian experience, you don't have a Canadian credential, so you should start from scratch. And you you invest all your life in your country, and now everything, all of your investment is equal to zero. So that's a big psychological problem from our side. That was a case for me. For 4 months, day and night, I was thinking, how should I start from scratch? How should I establish myself again? How should I survive in the new situation? And beside that problem, I think the cultural shock is another problem. I came from the social culture and to a liberal culture. And our social culture, and everyone is very welcoming. And when I came to Canada and I tried to engage with everyone, since they have a different culture and they were not very welcoming, as I think that they must be. So I thought must be a problem in me or my identity, or I have some kind of problem that they don't want to engage with me. Because back in home, we are very social. We sit to each other, we talk to each other, we share our concern. But here in Canada, everyone is from different background. They are not much interested in my background. And I thought that since I have a big sorrow, everyone should understand me, that I'm in different situation. So that's another case. Plus, since I'm working in documentation, every day I build up in my trauma because I'm listening to stories, I'm listening to the victims, I'm documenting cases, so that every day build up on my trauma, and I don't know that I have a trauma. And at the same time, I'm trying to show myself strong because I'm a defender, I'm activist. If I somehow break down, who will happen to my family and to the people that I want to try to be to their representation. So the pressure from the social, the career, losing everything, and build up in trauma, I think that situation, me at a different position. And after almost 1 year, 1.5 years, I consider that I am not someone that I was 2 years back. Nowadays, nothing gives me joy, and I saw that I have changed to a different person. And in this 2 years, I think I live almost 2 decades in this 2 years. Even though they give me different experience, but living this experience and coming out of this experience and trying to somehow stay stable or establish yourself again, that's a big trauma. I think we as a community should think about it. And even I try to go to the healing or some kind of psychiatrist, but it was difficult to someone who find me, because the culture difference, the language difference, and the social difference. When I try to talk to the psychiatrist, and they don't know me, my background and my country, and the feeling that I had at the time when I was 6 and 7, and the Taliban deprived me from my right to education, how kind of feeling I had, and that was not easy for them to speak about it. But every time that I try to speak about them, that somehow increase my trauma. So I think there is a big situation of the psychological problem, and as a community, we should think about it. What we can do to help other newcomers to our community.
Thank you so much, Shabnam. There's so many elements there, but we know that this is a widespread phenomenon. We can foresee it. You are now telling us about it. So, it begs a lot of questions. What is being done to respond? You are now here. You are part of society here. And this is a very important big question. Victor, you want to add something, please?
Yeah, I would like to support the idea of Shabnam, that to say like just a little bit about it. Since I came here in Canada, from Congo, I used to document the situation, the victim, especially women and children. All the time, my life was like that, to document, to do many things. So after that, I didn't have any help. I used to help them, but for me, I didn't have any help. Even if I came here in Canada, they can give me many things to show me what I can do. But about my mental health, no one helped me. And I remember one day I asked them, so why you don't ask me what I was passing through before coming here to Canada? It's like it's not their interest. And for me, it was the main point, because I have to continue. That one, it stopped me to continue. I have to know, how can I leave that and continue my work? That was the big problem. Another thing is, when I'm here, I have like a burden for my other members in my country, my organization. They need me, they need my support. And I don't have enough money to support them or to fund activities. So what I did, you know what? I did Uber. Yeah, I put my car to do Uber. When I had something, I send to them. I had to share, because I feel like I have to be like, they want me to help them, and me, I need really to help them. I do Uber. At night, I have to sleep, but I do Uber, because they need something from me. It's a big problem. So another way to get a heal for myself, it's where I talk to the youth, to the people about my situation. I have to talk for what I'm passing through. When I speak, I talk to people, I feel like, okay, at least I can do this. I can continue. So I struggle by myself, and no help from the government, for another association. No, they don't know what they're passing through. I didn't have any help. So that's what I want to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. When you tell me that story, and I think we all have the experience. If we take an Uber driver, almost all my Uber drivers are recent immigrants. Many may be refugees. But what I often find, and I ask them, always about where they're from originally, their background. It's remarkable how many of them have professional competences. I don't know how many engineers and lawyers I've had as my drivers, which is ridiculous. And Shabnam, you used the word credential. And this is a problem. We know this is a problem even if we don't talk about activists in exile. Newcomers to Canada, we do not easily in Canada recognize credentials. In fact, we normally discount entirely. We say, we don't care if you've been a doctor for 25 years or a lawyer for 20, you get 0 credit. Now you have to look at, what our systems accept. I shouldn't say 0, there are processes, but not easy at all, which of course is ridiculous. Inside Canada, we have a shortage of various professionals. But many people like yourselves, this question of credentials, can you speak about, some things are more peculiar. For example, law, the professional competences may be very similar, but certain formalities require knowledge of the legal system locally. But they're not so impossible. Basically legal systems are similar. But some other areas, the human body is the same everywhere in the world. A doctor or a nurse basically does the same thing. Again, I acknowledge that there are certain demonstration of competency that may be required, but that might be taking some tests or something like that, but not having to do years and years of re-education and so forth. Do anyone want to share something about this question of credentials? Do you have advice about it from your own experiences or observations?
I can tell you based on my experience here in Canada about credentials. When I arrived, I just heard, you're a lawyer from Ukraine, you don't have any credentials here to practice, right? So that's why I try to find a way how I can practice in Canada. So I submitted my documents, my background, and showed them what I have to do. As I mentioned before, they have to say, as they said me, you have to study, you have to receive GD, LLM, or just like receive license from another country. So it means from scratch, right? I already have experience, I have license. So like, it's not easy, right? So I say, okay, maybe I need to take time for myself and understand, do I really want to practice in Canada? From other perspective, credentials, considering education, right? So Canada has a vast evaluation program. So I submitted my documents through Ukrainian organization, and they evaluated my diplomas. And they say, yeah, we confirm that, because back in a day in Ukraine, I have 3 master degrees, I have PhD. So that's why I applied all my diplomas, and they considered and they confirmed that, yeah, it's the same level in Canada. So that's all. So but I don't need what I can do with that, right? Okay, I have a paper that Canada says, yeah, your diploma equal, you have equal level here in Canada. Okay, but the system, consider my situation, lawyer, right? The system is different because Ukraine has a civil law system, Canada has common law system. Last year, I tried by myself to learn a bit about common law system. Yeah, but of course, I don't understand all. So I have to study. For lawyers, it's not easy to begin from scratch. Emotionally, at first, it's not easy when you already achieved some level. So yeah, I have something in Canada, but I don't know what to do with these credentials and what kind of next steps I have to make, So yeah.
Luis, as a journalist, of course, there are, I would say, fairly universal journalistic professional standards and ethics, but there's no formal credentials, are there? Or correct me about I may be ignorant about.
Well, not credentials per se. Of course, education. If you have in my case, I have a bachelor's degree in journalism. But in journalism, I would say because of the dire situation journalism in Canada is right now, just a few days ago, I think 600 CBC employees going to be fired. So the competition is really high. And because of that competition, there's a lot of protectionism, so to speak, towards Canadian, especially because the system, we have to understand our place within the system. So the system is you have media companies struggling, but then also you have universities producing new journalists. So I guess the system is telling the companies, or the companies understood, okay, within the system, we have to bring those students, Canadian born probably, we need to bring them because of even cost, whatever, but we have to feed our system from these new journalists. I have a lot of experiences. It's going to take a while, but as I'm trying to look forward or to try to see what things can we do for improve, I think some kind of protocol when you arrive as an activist in exile. I think one is arrival and settlement. You have to settle. You have to find your place. You have to integrate. Integration means find a community where you belong. Then you have to incorporate. And incorporate is, for instance, what Olga is doing. Okay, okay, I am a PhD. I have this. I have this. I have this. Okay, where can I fit? And how can I use, again, my mind, my professional experience into this? And then, and that incorporation means that you are recognized as an expert into a place where your expertise and experience is treasured and amplified, which is, okay, you are from Congo, you are from Ukraine, you are from Afghanistan. Okay, you know way more than we may think. So we need you here because we are going to grow as a community, as a country, as an organization. And that's where I found, at least in journalism, a little bit of jealousy from local journalists. Because when they said, for instance, just quick story, I have a conversation with a journalist, and he said, oh yes, I went to, I don't know, I think he went to Haiti or some kind of place when there was some violence there. And he said, yeah, it was hard. And he said, well, I come from Juarez and I live there. So I have to live and work there. And that creates some kind of tension in our conversation, because it's different to go and do some what we call extractive journalism, and then coming back to your home in Ottawa or Toronto with and with all the system of support that journalists have here. So I guess that's part of the conversation that we need to have as a country. How can we incorporate people like us in a better way? And we are not trying to receive special benefits or treatments. We basically, I guess, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, what all we are asking for is an opportunity, a fair opportunity to show who we are and one we can bring to the conversation.
I think there's, again, so much in this, some great ideas, Luis, but also some, I think it's well known that, of course, institutions, including professional associations, have protective elements. They guard their own interests, and some of these maybe are not very far off of kind of cabals. They don't want the. So we can have a lot of nice humanitarian, charitable attitude, but we don't want competition, right? So this is a kind of tension. But I think this needs a fuller discussion. You mentioned protocols and things where there's validity to check, for example, knowledge base equivalencies and so forth. Things are not all the same everywhere, but that recognize that this phenomenon exists. As you say, people are coming here with tremendous experience, with already formal qualifications, diplomas and things like that. Because there's an assumption in Canada, the Canadian immigration story, even for refugees, is that part of the integration is dealt with through your community here. It's a diasporic phenomenon. So it would kind of be, oh, you're Ukrainian? We got 1.5 million Ukrainian Canadians. What's the problem, right? Go speak with the Ukrainians. Or DRC, I don't know if there's much of a community, but there may be, or even we are more stupid. We say things like, yeah, sure, Central Africans who speak French. Well, speak with them. But so I'm interested to know, what is your experience? Because this idea of diaspora, which is a well-studied, established phenomenon, it has its truth to it, but it also is a very simplistic reductionist idea. There's not a uniform diaspora, right? I mean, there's enormous diversity. For example, to say 1.5 million Canadians of Ukrainian origin, that's 1.5 million extremely diverse people, politically, socially, historically, family, many things. So can you comment in terms of an activist, are you always welcome even, or maybe you don't even want to associate with the diaspora for reasons? There could be risks, or maybe there isn't much of a community. Shabnam, in terms of Afghanistan, Canada had literally nothing to do with Afghanistan until about 20 years ago. It's the opposite side of the world. We had no trade relations. We didn't, the cultural distinctions are enormous. I doubt there were many Afghans in Canada before about 20 or 25 years ago. So, I can say that, for example, for Rohingya, to name one group, there's less than 1,000 Rohingya in Canada. So it's not really sensible to say, well, integrate through the Rohingya community. Does anyone want to talk about this? Or, I mean, Victor, I know you came here many years ago. What is your feeling around this idea of diaspora? Is it that simple or that problematical?
Okay, what I can say, especially in Congolese diaspora, that means they are like united, but there's a difference because of the political obedience. So many of them, they can say, oh, you are like part of the people who's in power, and you are part of people who are not, in power. That's the problem they have. But when there is something like a problem community, we are together. And also something, if you don't tell them who you are, they will not know you. But once you say that, you'll be like someone who they can rely. If they need something, they can come to you, and you can bring something to them about, especially for my work, human rights, human rights, and also political issues. So they know that the problem is that you can be in conflict only because of the political issues. But otherwise, you are good, everything is good. Even for the immigration process, they can encourage you to go to your community. They say, oh, we have a big community here in Congo, in Ottawa, in Gatineau. So I think, have you met them? You can meet them. So that can be helpful. They used to say that. Because it's like you help them. If you go to your community, they have less work to help you to be reintegrated here. So that's how they push you to go to your community. But according to the history of my country, some people, they don't want to go to the Congolese community.
I can imagine it's very difficult. Unfortunately, we have 1 minute left of our time.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid, and I apologize that I began a big conversation now on diaspora. I'm sure everyone has something to say, but there's so many things that we have heard now raised from all of your stories and our conversation. Let me just thank everyone for contributing. We have kept track of this, and in terms of the Voices in Exile initiative we will come back to this. I was taking notes, and I hope you took some notes about some ideas, because it strikes me there are so many issues here that need to be talked through. But also there are ideas of solutions. This is not like we can't improve all of this or make things better. And we have hardly talked at all about, Luis, you talk about moving to empowerment, which is right, but this is, in my view, this is not even a huge investment question, because you have the value, and it's a question of unlocking the value. So this is something that we really need to talk about more, the assets, if I can use that terrible commercial term, that you constitute, and others like you, so many others like you, that makes Canada dynamic, vibrant, and rich in terms of social and human capital that really we need to unlock and empower. But thank you for everyone who contributed. Merci beaucoup aussi, Victor, même que nous n'avons pas eu l'interprétation disponible. Thank you for contributing. And thank you for Olga and Luis and Shabnam. You are each amazing people. We're grateful for your contributions and for your participation, and we look forward to working together. And thanks also for those who joined, and also for the John Humphrey Center for the initiative. It is, and I will end with this, today is the 75th anniversary of the adoption of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. Tomorrow is the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. They were instruments that promised us a brighter and better future, and we remain committed to them. And we hope we will work forward with you to realize that promise. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you.